What's up, guys? Connor Anlin here for another episode of the Greater Society podcast. And today we are going to be talking about a lot of PA stuff, but not necessarily focused solely on like the state. We're going to be talking about John Fetterman kind of leading the charge, being the one responsible, I suppose, for the change in the dress code in the United States Senate. We're going to be talking about, briefly, we'll talk about the Pennsylvania State House being retained by the Democrats after a special election last night. And then we will be talking about, also in Pennsylvania, Governor Shapiro passing a executive action that will provide automatic voter registration for those who are getting a driver's license, which I'm sure some of the folks listening won't agree with, but we'll go over why that's a good thing. Then we are going to go into Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of Transportation. I'll preempt it. I'm not really a big fan of Pete Buttigieg. I think he's quite centrist and in some ways regressive. Especially his history more so than like what his actions have been in office, but we'll dive into that later. But him actually doing an excellent job pushing back on the Republicans in a testimony. I believe that was happening today, earlier today, which is great. A lot of these stories are actually super fresh, happening today. The other big thing I want to highlight is how the Republicans' impeachment inquiry continues to be a farce and how it is lacking any evidence, and yet the evidence that they claim that they have is being disproven as we speak, even though there is no evidence to speak of. So we'll get into that, but I want to start here in Pennsylvania, and I want to start with automatic voter registration. I think this is super important. Here we have, I'm going to pull up Governor Shapiro. In the state of Pennsylvania, we have closed primaries. There's actually a letter that was signed by, I believe, all of the former living governors in the state of Pennsylvania, including Tom Wolf, who just left office this past year, signing a petition or a letter, I should say, that says we should support open primaries. Me being somebody that is a Democratic, official, it would make the life of me and the other campaigns a little bit harder. But I believe that there should be open primaries, and I think that it actually increases democracy. It increases the people's voices, and independents should be able to vote in primary elections, especially, I believe, in the presidential primary. So we will see how that shapes up. But in the same note, you know what also increases voter participation? What empowers more people is automatic voter registration when you go to the DMV and get a license. Now, I'll preemptively say that there's going to be people that will say, oh, you shouldn't do this because we need voter ID when you're... Oh, wait, just kidding. Because they're getting a license or an ID at the DMV. Okay. Well, we shouldn't be forced to join a party. Well, you don't have to join a party. Well, we shouldn't have to register because then we'll change we can't change it later. Yeah, you can. You can change your address. You can change your party. it is something that is extremely, extremely pro-democracy, and frankly, does not favor, unless you believe that democracy favors one party, does not favor one party over the other. So this is a move that I believe is both progressive in the sense that it's not like a left-wing idea, but it's progressive in the sense that it's increasing democracy. It is increasing the voice of the people. It is including more people in the process, and it is making it more streamlined and easy, especially for young people to get engaged politically, which I think is important. Here we have Governor Shapiro on MSNBC.
Pennsylvania's Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro this morning. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is marking National Voter Registration Day by becoming the 24th U.S. state to enact automatic registration.
Governor, thanks so much for being with us. Tell us about how Pennsylvania is making it easier to vote.
Well, look, now when you go to the DMV to get a driver's license, renew your driver's license, Joe, you'll be able to automatically get registered to vote unless you choose to opt out.
There you go. You have the option to opt out. You have the option to choose your party. You have the option to do it when you renew your license. You have the option to do it. It's a choice.
About 1.7 million Pennsylvanians who are eligible to vote but aren't registered. This is a
1.7 million. I believe, and I kind of want to fact check myself here. So, Pennsylvania voter gap in 2020, Biden, Trump. So Biden beat Trump in Pennsylvania. Let's see if I can. Finally, where that? Biden beat Trump 2020 outcome PA. So it's a very, very small number. I want to be accurate with it. So it's less than 100,000. So 1.7 million. So it's like quick math. It's like about 70 something thousand voters. So if you look at 1.7, and I'm saying this in the support of like, look, if you're Donald Trump and you want to win Pennsylvania, you would go and find new voters, right? Well, here you go. Here's 1.7 million voters or potential voters that could be voting for you. Now, I think that this, generally speaking, I believe that the more people vote, the more likely a pro-democracy candidate like Joe Biden has in getting elected. I think that the more people that are engaged in elections, generally speaking, the more progressive and populist person is elected for the most part. So when we look at this, Pennsylvania alone has 1.7 million. If you extrapolate that across the country, if you give the power to the people, how many more? I mean, of course, it's how many more state house districts, how many more state senate districts, how many congressional races are changed because of this? A lot could be at least. But somehow there's still probably going to be some issue with it, I'm sure.
Safe, secure, streamlined way to be able to get them to register and get them to participate in our democracy.
How many more voters do you think you'll get registered, that you'll get to the table through this process, just from what we've learned from other states that already have it?
Look, we'll see, Mika, and we'll certainly report back, but our Secretary of State believes that we'll have tens of thousands of new registrants in the first year. We'll certainly track it and see how it goes. The key issue here is we need people to participate in our democracy. That's what strengthens it. I've spent my career fighting to defend the right to vote as Attorney General, and of course, as a candidate for governor, I made a commitment that I would enact automatic voter registration here in the Commonwealth Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And so I'm proud that on this National Voter Registration Day, we're making good on that promise, and we're making sure more eligible voters can participate in our great democracy.
There you go. Governor Shapiro living up to the hype. So far, living up to the hype. You know, there are people, and I bring this up, I feel like every time I talk about Josh Shapiro, who, by the way, does follow me on Twitter. If I haven't mentioned that before.
Joining us now,
there was playing it again. But he is a legitimate candidate, at least in the future, I think, for the Democratic nomination, whether that's 28 or 32 or whenever, for president. You know, he's had that trajectory, and I don't think it's out of the question to say that he's been doing a very good job in the state of Pennsylvania. So we will see. Here we have, really quickly, I want to bring up the fact that, and this might hurt some of the folks in the chat, I'm sorry. Lindsey Powell, who was running to fill Sarah Innamorado's seat in District 21 in the State House, which is out in Allegheny County, destroyed last night and is going to secure or continue to secure the Democratic majority in the State House of Representatives in Pennsylvania. This is very important. We've talked about the importance of this, but I will go over it one more time. Now, it doesn't matter as much now that the Democrats have flipped it for a non-consecutive Congress, but theoretically, if the Republicans were to control the State House and the State Senate, they would be able to technically pass a veto proof from the governor, so Governor Shapiro could not preempt it in any way, a ban on abortion, however early that they decided, 6 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever they decided, they could do that. They could put it as a constitutional amendment on the ballot, which would enshrine it in the Pennsylvania Constitution. And by the way, they would frame it in a way that is convoluted. Would be not clear whatsoever. And it would be framed in a way that people would vote yes, because that is how these folks get people to vote yes. That is typically how the constitutional amendments are particularly structured. They have an overwhelming success rate, and success rate meaning they pass when it is framed in that yes no, and the yes is the overwhelming. So, and Will, as you point out in chat, how many weeks do you think is good? I believe in the 24-week precedent set forth by Roe versus Wade, with the exception, of course, with the life of the mother, rape, incest, the normal exceptions past 24 weeks. I think that's very reasonable. And I also support sexual education for people that they understand what sex is. And, of course, preventative measures like contraception, which, again, Republicans don't want to cover, whether that's for birth control for women or just regular old condoms. They don't want to teach people about this stuff. So, of course. I don't care about where Europe is. I care about the precedent that was set for 50 years in America. So 24 weeks is the cap that was set by the precedent of Roe versus Wade, which is the precedent for 50 years, my entire life. So I have no problem with that. Here we have Lindsey Powell. She is filling the seat, and now the most important thing is that we're going to preempt the Republicans from trying to pass one of these BS abortion bans, any other sort of right-wing reactionary voter ID laws that you could imagine that the Pennsylvania Republicans would pass. Because, of course, as we talk about over and over, I have no problem with saying that you should have an ID to vote. But I do have a problem with the way that is implemented by the Republicans across the country where they do it. Because, of course, they don't provide you a free ID. They don't provide you one that is just mail it to you once you verify your identification. There's no way that they're going to do that. No. They just require it, and that's it. That's it. They won't pass anything that will protect the environment. They won't pass anything that will protect civil rights. You know, this is how the Republican Party operates, especially in Pennsylvania and many other of these states in the union. But of course, you know, some folks don't want to be part of the union, right? That's I guess that's one of the overlooked things that we should always consider, right? Staying in Pennsylvania, I don't know what this is. The Senate dress code changes in the United States Senate has triggered the Republicans because, God forbid, you don't wear a suit in the Senate chamber, and you must be a slob, a loser. Of course, you know, you made it to the Senate, but, you know, it's besides the point. And of course, this is always going after Senator John Fetterman, who, for better or worse for the Republicans, will be there for 6 years, and I proudly voted for John Fetterman. And in fact, I'll even say it, I voted for Malcolm Kenyatta in the primary because Malcolm, 1, is as progressive as John Fetterman is, and 2, is a younger dude. And I liked his message. So, but I was very proud and very happy to vote for John Fetterman in the 2022 election. I don't particularly care how he dresses. I care what he supports on policy. And this is why the performative measures of what other folks, whether it's Republicans, Democrats, anybody, the performative measures in politics, we kind of need to start to get rid of these, you know, old age, like, oh, the good old boys. Like, no, I'm sorry. Who cares about that? And it's besides the point because, like, people like we're pointing out that, like, Kirsten Sinema dresses like, you know, a peacock and nobody cares. And, like, I don't care. She can dress that way. I don't particularly give a shit. It's not my problem. But here you have the Senate and changing this. And here's a quote from John Fetterman. America, it's about freedom and choice. I like it. He said, it's like a Burger King, you rule kind of thing. This article from The Hill says, for years, the Senate has strictly enforced its informal dress code for members, with men required to wear suits, ties, and business attire on the Senate floor. These rules will still apply to staff and outside visitors. Of course, you know, I don't think that this should apply, but I'm not a senator. Yeah, so there we have John Fetterman saying that. And then here's Mitch McConnell's reply. I think I'm pretty safe in saying most of, if not all, Republican senators think we ought to dress up to go to work. So I can't imagine that we're going to be wearing jeans on the Senate floor anytime soon. Oh, that's too bad. And Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene said, the new dress code is disgraceful. Of course, this is from Marjorie Taylor Greene, who allegedly, you know, just happens to have been having an affair with her CrossFit coach. But, you know, her and Lauren Boebert, they're above double standards. Who gives a shit? They can do whatever they want, right? Well, here's I loved seeing this reply. And this is so funny that this is tweeted out from an official senator's Twitter. If those jagoffs in the House stop trying to shut our government down and fully support Ukraine, then I will save democracy by wearing a suit on the Senate floor next week. See, here's the thing, and I don't understand. The Republicans that have been attacking John Fetterman on this point for years, since he was the mayor, they have been attacking him for not wearing a suit in the state house, in the state Senate when he presided as the lieutenant governor. They're attacking him as the mayor. Who cares how the guy dresses? The dude looks like a biker. Who cares? Who cares? Am I criticizing the way that Mitch McConnell dresses? No, I'm criticizing him because he's a piece of garbage. That's the problem. And yet I still feel bad when he's having a seizure on TV. And then we have this furthering the question of, does John Fetterman have a body double? Republicans think that these aren't the same guys. It's just that one guy has a mustache and the other guy has a goatee. Oh man. He must have a body double because he went into a psychiatric ward for like 3 or 4 weeks. Oh man, he's got to have a body double. The obsession on these smaller issues, these things like, oh, the other thing is like, oh, people were saying like, we can't see when his tattoos disappear because his tattoos are here on his forearm, and then the picture is him going like this. It's like not showing his forearms. It's like embarrassing level of critique of the Pennsylvania senator. This is always what the Republicans do because they have no policy, no real ideology other than tax cuts for the wealthy. They don't give a damn about you. They don't give a damn about your family. The elected Republicans in Congress, in the Senate, they care about shoving money into their own pockets and into the pockets of their wealthy donors and the business owners. Not even the local business owner, because of course they don't really want competition. They're supported by big business, and that is who pays their bills. So Republicans will go and say, "Oh, I'm going to go on the Senate floor and I'm going to talk about how bad it is that they're banning, or they're not really banning, but they're maybe taking out of circulation all the although technically it was the own company taking it out of circulation, the old Dr. Seuss books that may or may not have had some racist tropes in them, and the family of Dr. Seuss didn't want those to be sold. But no, that's Democrats going after it. Or, oh no, they changed Mr. Potato Head to Potato Head, so I have to go on the Senate floor and complain about it. Because Mattel changed it. Or no. We can't have girls be the leaders in Star Wars, the lead actresses. Oh no. It's the same thing. When the Republicans realize that they have nothing that they can pass because they're not in control of both parts of the government, all they do is go culture war, but they don't even recognize that they're losing the culture war. And yes, the chat is working. I'm just ignoring people. If people want to come in here and be stupid, they're more than welcome to be stupid. More than welcome to. But Republicans always, and you can see it. You can see it in the chat right now. It's never about actual policy. It's only, oh, I am so upset because of some X, Y, or Z bullshit in the culture war. John Fetterman not wearing a suit? Are you kidding me? And then they don't realize why John Fetterman is popular. They don't realize why John Fetterman absolutely bodied Dr. Oz. Why, even, for that matter, Josh Shapiro absolutely spanked Doug Mastriano. We didn't even have to wait a day to find out that Fetterman beat Dr. Oz. You know how hard that is? Like for Fetterman and for Josh Shapiro to destroy their opponents so bad that they knew on the election night in Pennsylvania, where you're not even allowed to start counting the ballots until 8 o'clock for either the mail-in ballots or the regular ballots. Could you imagine? Wow. Let us, while we're on the topic of being hyped up here, Chris, I know you didn't want to come on the program, but since you have been on the chat lately, I will answer your question. I haven't seen anything about Perkiomen School District because I don't live there, so I don't know anything about it. I will look into it. I'll take your word for it. And probably not because they're kids. Kids don't know better than to say that they hate trans people for the most part. And so I'd have to look into it. I'll get back to you when I get back to you, I suppose. Here we have, yeah, you do hate trans people. You're a transphobe. Here we have an article from Newsweek. Joe Biden impeachment claim questioned. Oh no. Oh no. Not our infallible impeachment inquiry that we have so much evidence for. In fact, there is so much evidence that it is just pouring out. It is leaking all over the place that the Republicans need to have an impeachment inquiry right now. Republican efforts to impeach President Joe Biden. I'm reading the article now. Suffered a blow after fresh evidence emerged showing his bid to remove Ukrainian prosecutor general Viktor Shokin in 2015 represented U.S. government policy. A professor in U.S. politics told Newsweek that unless opposing evidence was uncovered, the impeachment was likely to backfire on the Republican Party, a view supported by some other analysts and political figures. Then Vice President Biden met Petro Poroshenko, the Ukrainian president at the time, in December 2015, after which he claimed he'd threatened to withhold $1 billion in U.S. aid to Kyiv, unless Shokin was removed from his post, which he subsequently was. Wow, wait a second. Maybe, is that the evidence that the Republicans are claiming? Well, some conservatives have suggested Biden was attempting to protect Ukrainian energy company Burisma, the board of which his son, Hunter Biden, had joined in 2014, by moving against Shokin. Okay. However, a pre-meeting memo prepared for Biden by the United States State Department, dated November 25th, 2015, made it clear that removing Shokin was the express policy of the Obama administration. And the reason they were going after him is because, quote, he was widely regarded as an obstacle to fighting corruption, if not a source of the problem in Ukraine. That is the absolute bottom line here, is to say the Republicans have no evidence. And if they did, let's just say Obama was so brazen that he made it the express, I guess whoever was Secretary of State at the time, 2015, was John Kerry. John Kerry made it explicitly clear, we are making this happen in Ukraine because we want Hunter Biden to get richer? Or is it more likely the fact that there actually is corruption in Ukraine? There was and is still. And the prosecutor that they are specifically going after wasn't prosecuting Burisma, wasn't going after the corruption within the company and the interminglings of that in the government. And yet, there's no evidence of anything else. There is no evidence that the Republicans could present that says, here is President Obama saying, we're doing this to help Hunter Biden or Joe Biden or anything like that. Other than literally it saying this is the express policy supporting the United States policy for foreign affairs, which remember 2014, 2015 is when the invasion of Ukraine happened originally in Crimea. But no. This is the evidence. This is all that they have. If this is your evidence, then there's no case. Again, I will express this ad nauseum. If there's a case to be brought against President Biden, have at it. But this is not it. My friend, this is not it. Next, we will go to, well, let's go to this clip here. Because we're on a Biden kick. And I'm sure some of the folks in the chat or listening at home are union members. Now, behind me, I have my union posters. I have union posters throughout my room, of course. Because I'm from a union family. My dad is a railroad engineer, the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen. That union allowed me to, and me and my brothers, go to the schools that we did, moved to Central Bucks. I became the first in my family to go to college and get a degree. Now I'm also the first person to go, in my family to go to an Ivy League school. My brothers are both going to college. We have had all these opportunities. We had healthcare growing up because of my dad's work and because of the union representing him and the collective bargaining of those union members. And of course, my mom helping out too, of course, but for the sake of this conversation, unions, specifically the union that my dad is in, is what allowed and catapulted us into being able to be self-sufficient and have the opportunities that we have. So here is Nikki Haley, who has theoretically skyrocketed, pretty close to Vivek Ramaswamy's third place in the Republican primary. Of course, Ron DeSanctimonious falling all the way down to about 12%. And Donald Trump, of course, holding his significant lead over the remainder of the field. Nikki Haley goes on Fox News with Neil Cavuto to say this line, which if I was Joe Biden, I would be using it in an ad today.
Well, I think that's it tells you that when you have the most pro-union president and he touts that he is emboldening the unions, this is what you get. And I'll tell you who pays for it is the taxpayers. You know, here, from what I understand, the union is asking for a 40% raise. The companies have
over multiple years.
Come back.
And it was 36%.
For the 20% raise, I think any of the taxpayers would love to have a 20% raise and think that's great. But, the problem is we're all going to suffer.
Actually, more people would get larger raises if they had union representation. But of course, the Republican Party, Nikki Haley included, has eroded the support of labor since 1980 and specifically led to stagnated wages. And of course, they don't care about the middle class. They don't care about the working class. They don't care about the blue collar workers. They don't care about any of that stuff because they care about Ford, GM, and Chrysler. But of course, the UAW that is fighting for these wage increases, they're fighting to get what they had back. They're fighting back from what they had in 2008, 2009, stripped away from them. Stripped away from them. Their pension stripped away from them, creating a two-tier class system that anyone hired after 2009 was on the second tier. You're not getting the same benefits. You're not getting the same pension. You're not getting the same wages. You're not getting the same salary increases. You're not getting the same overtime benefits. You're not getting the same healthcare benefits because they cut it. Because if you don't recall, in 2008 and 2009, we had the Great Recession where the crash of the economy led to the United States government, the taxpayers that Nikki Haley is saying that we all want to have a pay increase. Of course we do. But those same taxpayers that had extremely high rates of unemployment bailed out the big three auto manufacturers. And now the workers, they're due for a new contract. And they deserve a contract that is fair, that pays them well, and provides them with retirement benefits. And you know what? You don't want to pay them? Okay, then you're not going to sell any cars. That's the point. Solidarity at this point in the United States, and I'm sure that there are some people out there that don't believe in this and have at it. But solidarity at this point is at an all-time high, at least in the modern era. And people are recognizing that you need to be collectively bargaining. You have to come together and say, together we can fight against unfair labor practices. And you know what? I think that I believe in the radical notion, the same as Franklin Delano Roosevelt, that every worker should have the right to unionize. Every worker should have the right to unionize. And you know what? Because it's funny, is because I can already hear the claims coming in. Oh, socialism, communism. But actually, supporting unions supports frankly, at best, social democracy. And at like medium, just outright capitalism. It just puts the power into the hands of labor as well. It's not single-handedly saying the boss has all the power. Because guess what? Did Jeff Bezos make every single widget that is sold on Amazon? Did he code every little piece of Amazon's back end that's actually how they make their money, collecting information on you? No, of course not. As Bernie Sanders said in the 2020 election, I think his workers would disagree that Jeff Bezos is solely responsible for the creation of what is the business, the company, Amazon. So the workers they deserve to have equal rights and representation. That doesn't mean that it should be paid the exact same across the board. That's not what they're saying. But they should have a fair wage, and they should be able to collectively bargain for better benefits. Also, Will says the UAW doesn't support Biden. The UAW is strategically withholding its endorsement until they get a contract, and then they will support President Biden. I can guarantee you that, because they are most certainly not going to support Trump. I can guarantee you that. That is 100%. I don't know if there's any more of this clip.
This is going to cause things to go up. And
this is going to cause things to go up. Of course, we can't pay labor more. We want to... Raise your hand if you want to support American businesses. Raise your hand if you want to support American workers. Raise your hand if you want to buy American goods. Well, I got good news for you. You can do that. You can support Ford, Chrysler, and GM. You can support these companies. But guess what? If you want those companies to be claiming patriotism, they have to pay the freaking workers a fair wage. That is not a crazy thing to ask. In fact, that is the most basic thing that you could ask. It is fundamental to a successful middle class, successful working class, rising out of poverty, alleviating poverty overall in a country, and creating a functional, less prone to recession economy. Empowering labor creates way less concentration at the top.
This is going to last a while. But, when you have a president that's constantly saying, go union, this is what you get. The unions get emboldened, and then they start asking for things that, that companies have a tough time doing. Well,
just so we know, in 2022, Ford Motor Company made $25.509 in gross profit. Just in the quarter ended June 30th, 2023, they had $7.48 billion in gross profit. So you're telling me gross profit, that includes direct labor. You're telling me that they can't afford to pay their workers more? That, of course, ignores the fact that the CEO did get a 40% raise. Yeah, no, we can't have the same. Can't have the same. Come on. Why would we do that? All right. Last we have here, and this might be triggering, but Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg is somebody that I am, or at least wasn't, a huge fan of, especially in 2020, the primary election. I felt in many ways that he's not president. Although, again, I said that about Josh Shapiro. I'll say this about Pete. I'll say it about Gavin Newsom. There are people like them that posture themselves. They're good rhetorically, and they're really strong at pushing back against Republican nonsense, frankly. But Pete Buttigieg wasn't my first, second, third, fourth, fifth, even probably choice in 2020, the primary election. However, Pete Buttigieg absolutely destroys the Republicans here in this hearing, where he's pushing back against Republicans in the House. This is about climate change, because of course we all know that climate change is not real. Climate change is a hoax, of course. As Trump said, it's a Chinese hoax. Let's see what Pete has to say here.
I don't know the percentage of atmospheric gases.
You don't know the
that exist
percent
in
of the
CO2.
atmosphere.
What I can tell you is that climate change is real. We got to do something about it.
Yeah, this one's
And
called
we've been
autumn, sir. So
I'm sorry?
This one's called autumn right now, so yeah.
I'm sorry, I couldn't make out what you said, sir.
This climate
He is saying this climate is autumn, or AKA the fall.
change right now is called autumn, yes.
Yeah, that's the seasons changing, which respectively is not the same thing as the climate changing. And as somebody who
Same thing as weather, by the way.
is hoping to retire in the 2050s and who has kids who will be old enough to ask me as they're getting to their 30s whether we did enough to deal with climate change or whether we just did what was convenient, I take that really seriously.
Reclaiming my time, thank you, Mrs. Secretary. The trillions and trillions we're going to cost our kids to chase.
The trillions and trillions we're going to cost our kids by switching our economy over to a green economy, a sustainable economy, which creates jobs, has higher wages, creates a competitive advantage within the supply chain of the world, of course, creating the cars, the charging stations that we would then export as goods. No. That's going to cost trillions of dollars. And we're going to stay on the exact same economic model that we have now, where we rely heavily on China, which I thought Republicans wanted to compete with China, but I guess they don't. If we wanted to compete with China, we would invest in sustainable energy. We would invest in electric vehicles. We would invest in jobs, good paying jobs, blue collar jobs here in America. That's what the CHIPS Act was so good. It's because we're undercutting China's production of the computer chips and all the computer parts that we need for motherboards, for cars, for all the different aspects of computers. It's vital that we invest in American jobs if we want to be competitive in the 21st century and, frankly, beyond that. But no, that's a radical notion. That's a radical notion. You want to invest in sustainable energy jobs? Why would you do that? Why would you want to create solar panels in America when we can create them in China? Why would you want to create charging stations in Michigan when we can create them in China or Vietnam or Mexico? You see, like, the double standard here is so apparent because the same people that want to wrap themselves in the flag and claim that they're so patriotic, they don't give a damn about providing a good paying job to their neighbor. Which there's no the actual cost increase of cars or any good for that matter, they did this with Papa John's pizzas, was extremely low. And they talked about raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. It was an extremely low percentage per pizza. Oh, I have to pay 5 cents more for a pizza? Oh God. That might add up to $1 over the year of all the pizzas that I'm shoving down my gullet. How could I not afford that? Or how could I afford that? Rather than taking the actual patriotic and, oh, yes, you could actually be a progressive patriot and say, I want to invest in good paying American jobs that provide health care, a living wage, retirement benefits for our American workers. They work a regular 40-hour-a-week job. They get overtime for the hours that they work over that because that's what they deserve. That is what we establish as labor law in this country. And we don't have to exploit third world countries for their labor, their natural resources. We can do both. It is patriotic to believe and to fight for these things. Let's see what else he has to say in this clip.
A tiny percentage of CO2 will bankrupt all of us, bankrupt our economy, and ship it to China for all the other reasons.
So that's the other thing. Is like he's saying it'll bankrupt us and it'll ship our economy to China, although not taking action is allowing China to take action first on creating the things that are going to be sold to Americans. So rather than being like, no, we're going to invest in we're going to subsidize oil and gas. We're not going to subsidize solar panel production. We're not going to, even if, is this a compromise? Nuclear, if we wanted to invest in nuclear power, we could do that. We could do that. That is something we could look at. But no. Nope. Just want to do what we've been doing and burn those fossil fuels. Burn, baby, burn. Drill, baby, drill.
So I yield back, Mr.
Gentleman's time has expired. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Huffman.
Mr. Secretary, it's good to see you. You can see that I serve here in Congress with some of the greatest minds of the 19th century. Thank you.
That's a good one. Here's the second clip. Let me pull it up. Here is, I believe this is Scott Perry.
This is the government
here in Pennsylvania. Going back and forth with Pete Buttigieg again. Pete pushing back hard. You love to see it.
funding the destruction of our own automotive industry. And I hope you know that approximately 2/3 of EV owners make over $100,000 a year. My bosses don't make that.
Red herring. Red herring. Of course, Mr. Perry here wants to say my bosses don't make that, but he does make that. He makes well over that, first of all. That's the first part. Second part, electric vehicles were more expensive. Yes. It's like saying, like, you wanted a flat screen TV? Are you kidding me? They're $5,000 in 2004. Even if they existed at that point. It was like plasma TVs. But today you could get a flat screen TV for like $250. God forbid. Oh, you want to lower the cost over time? You want to actually invest in the production of electric vehicles to lower the cost, make them more affordable for the average American, which then incentivizes them to purchase them? You want to give them tax credits for that? What are you, a socialist?
I don't know if you can justify or how you justify forcing my constituents to pay for EVs and EV infrastructure for coastal elites and wealthy people, but somehow you do.
Well, I need to point out that wealthy people were specifically excluded from the Inflation Reduction Act.
Well,
We
I
wish
just
we coulda
gave
had
you the
your
number.
support on
Do you
cutting the cost
dispute
of
that
these.
2/3 of EV owners are owned by
Which,
people?
by the way, I just want to say, like, the Inflation Reduction Act did means test it, and this is precisely the thing. It's like when you cover everybody, it makes it way less hard. It makes it way harder to attack a bill. But when you means test it, they still don't give a shit. Republicans will just make stuff up. They'll lie and just be like, "Oh, you're just helping your coastal elitist friends." Yeah, my coastal elitist friends that elected Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan, or that elected, I forget his name, in Wisconsin. And yes, it actually did reduce inflation. If you actually look at the rate of inflation, it's been lower ever since. Every single month, for the most part, it has gone down consistently over the last year.
People over 100,000 that make over 100,000. Did you
Sure, because
dispute that?
the first EVs, of course, were
Do you
acquired by
dispute
more-
that?
No,
mean,
but that number's going down.
Those are the facts. It doesn't matter if they're going down.
It doesn't matter if it's going down.
Now,
why were
the
you
folks
against
that
cutting
I
the price of
represent
EVs?
can't afford them
I
today,
apologize that he's Rick Harrisoning too.
sir.
Why were you against cutting their costs?
All these factors. I'm not against cutting their costs. The market should do it. But you want the government, you want my taxpayers to pay to cut the cost, which isn't cutting the
If
cost.
you were of
It's
the view-
subsidizing
Here's where Pete's gonna push back really hard, and I really like this answer.
the
Respectfully,
cost.
Congressman,
Sir,
if you were
with
of the
all
view
these
that there should be
factors
no
combined,
subsidy to propulsion
all these
vehicles, then are
factors
you against
combined
oil and gas
mean
subsidies?
that for
Do you
every
believe that oil
EV
and gas
sold, sir,
subsidies
at a
should-
loss, that the cost of the, as my colleague on the other side, the gas guzzling pickup truck is higher now to pay for the loss as you kill your administration, and you in particular kill the auto industry. And I'll remind you, in 2008, after the financial crisis, the federal government bailed out this industry. So
The Obama administration, by the way.
while you're here today, will you commit and will you pledge to oppose any effort to bail out the auto industry after you force it into bankruptcy again? Will you do that today, sir?
Congressman, I got started in politics when
guess the answer is no. I
Indiana
yield the-
factory was at risk of being
Yeah, that's also I like this answer too, because Pete's not from the coasts. He is not from New York. He's not from California. He's from Indiana.
shut down because an elected official in my state tried to block the administration from saving Chrysler. I got involved and stood with the UAW to save those jobs, and I'll always be with auto jobs being preserved.
That's a great answer. And by the way, there's a pretty rock solid support and reasoning to have bailed out the auto industry. Now, the argument that could be had is, should we have bailed out the big banks that caused the recession? That's another debate. But bailing out the auto industry, it's not really that big of a debate. Democrats, Republicans, I would assume we all want American jobs. Maybe assuming makes an ass out of you and me, but I would assume that Democrats and Republicans want American jobs, but could be wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, would you like to finish your statement?
Sure, thank you, and I'll try to be as concise as I can. There are some people who I suppose believe there should be no subsidies for anything involving transportation. And I assume, in the spirit of philosophical consistency, they would be against subsidizing oil and gas, as well as being against subsidizing Americans being able to afford an EV. There are others who believe that we should force Americans to be in the technology of the past forever.
Yep.
And then there's this administration, which recognizes that the world is moving to EVs, with or without us. And those EVs are either going to be made by Chinese workers or they're going to be made by American workers. And we respect the UAW standing up at the dawn of a new chapter in the automotive industry that created my hometown to make sure that those are not just American jobs, but good-paying American jobs.
Thank you very much. I apologize.
One of the best answers he could have gave. It is so obvious to see that the Republicans on this board, the Republicans that are running for Congress, and everywhere, from state houses to Senate to president, they are going to prioritize not the workers, not average Joe, not the guy that supposedly he's going to pick himself up by his bootstraps, which is literally impossible, by the way. No. They don't want to support, Joe Sixpack or Jane Six-Pack, I guess. I don't... I'm trying to not be super stereotypical. But and it is just so funny to see that the Republicans don't want to actually take any action to support the people that they supposedly represent. They supposedly represent. And yes, the irony of a co-conspirator to sedition and insurrection acting as some sort of prosecutor. For those who don't know, Mr. Perry, Congressman Perry, was a big supporter of the insurrection that happened on January 6th, 2021, which, of course, led to the second impeachment of the 4-time indicted, 2 times impeached, civilly liable rapist Donald J. Trump. But that's, besides the point. We have a lot of evidence that Hunter Biden is corrupt. So we have to make sure that we impeach Joe Biden, because that makes total logical sense. But I'll say this in closing here, that again, someone that I wasn't the biggest fan of, Pete Buttigieg. I still find myself being like, there is some parts of this that don't feel right. And he, as Secretary of Transportation, has done some great, some not so good, and everything in between. And we can honestly be able to say, like, some things handled with the airlines, not so great. Some things handled with labor rights, excellent. And the same thing with the Biden administration. The Biden administration on labor rights has been incredible. And seeing that the UAW, because we didn't really talk about the UAW going on strike because it happened after the program last week. So it's been like a week kind of building up to this. But the UAW, the United Auto Workers, going out on strike, targeted strikes across the country. And Will, to your question, didn't Biden get accused of rape? There has been accusations of that, but there has been no civil prosecution that has found Biden liable. There's been no criminal prosecution that has found him guilty. And in fact, there are many reports. And look, I'll say this, I'll be completely honest with you. In 2020, when stuff came out about it, I was like, this should be disqualifying. This should be blah, 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 right? As more came out, more facts and evidence came out, it appears that it is a false accusation. And believe me, I support when someone says that there is a false accusation against usually a man. They should be punished for that too. We could probably agree on that. But of course, Donald Trump was found civilly liable for rape because it was out of the statute of limitations for a criminal prosecution, and it's harder to prove in a criminal court of law, especially after years later. It's the same thing you see with Russell Brand. To be fair, I'm not covering that on the program right now because 1, we don't have all the facts, and 2, he's not a political figure in the same way. But that is exactly the type of whataboutism that is exemplified by the Republicans. So, that is all I have for you guys today. I guess it's not really a short show. I usually about an hour. I will be out of the country for a little while, and I pre-recorded an interview that I will be airing next week with the 3 young women that are running the Civic Circle podcast for the Bucks County Beacon. I had to think about what the name was for a second. I recorded that with them on Saturday. That will air next week. And hopefully enjoy it. Did like about an hour with them, talking about a bunch of different things. And you guys should also go and check out their podcast. You will have definitely the links and all that stuff will happen. But if you enjoy the show, you can make sure to hit the subscribe button. You can hit the thumbs up if you would like to. You can follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, and on TikTok at Greater Society Media. You can follow me on Twitter at Con O'Hanlon, and you can support the show at patreon.com/Greater Society Media. You can listen to the program on Apple, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast, and you can join our Discord server. The link is provided to you in the description box of this video, and if you are listening in the audio of this episode. So, until
These
next
are
time,
not
everybody.
market
It is not market forces. That was my finger, I guess, sliding on to click the button. But until next time, everybody, stay safe. Peace.